Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my Friday night Screen Screams review, where I will discuss what spooky movie has captured my attention this week. Spoiler free for this part one, of course. Now, today I am probably a little too excited to discuss Robert Eggers' 2024 masterpiece, Nosferatu. First of all, I was so looking forward to this movie from the moment that I heard it was coming out, which is to say I was then also very concerned because the last 5 times I have been really, really looking forward to a movie, they have been terrible. I mean, downright awful. I've hated them, and everyone that I have suckered into watching the film with me also hated them, and then I'm banned from choosing the next movie. So anyway, thankfully, Nosferatu did not fall into this curse. It was fantastic. Second of all, I love the original Nosferatu. I'll review it on here someday, but needless to say, it's one of those pivotal films that truly helped define a genre. And in this case, the genre nearest and dearest to my heart, horror, as well as really kind of imprinting itself very deep into the collective psyche. And with that said, I could think of absolutely no other director best suited to reinventing this absolute treasure of a film than Robert Eggers. Now, the story is well known. I mean, Nosferatu is truly kind of just a German bastardization of Bram Stoker's Dracula. A young real estate Thomas Hutter, played by Nicholas Hoult, who is honestly, this is like my favorite. I mean, you can't really say Jonathan Harker, but kind of, because again, it's sort of like it's a very close translation. I'll get into the drama of that when I do the original 1922 Nosferatu. But as far as that role in this series of events goes, Thomas Hutter, Jonathan Harker, Nicholas Hoult so far has been my favorite for that. I mean, he was fantastic. Is sent out to Transylvania to negotiate the sale of a local estate to the enigmatic Count Orlock, leaving Hutter's young wife Ellen, who, in this iteration of the story, has been plagued forever by nervous sensitivity and nightmares, in the capable hands of their friends, the Hardings. Now, again, this psychic ability or kind of supernatural leaning for Ellen is an invention of the 2024 film, and it really does a great job imbuing the movie with a little bit more drama fit for a more modern audience. Now, the truth is, I loved every aspect of this movie so much that I kind of don't know where to start, so I am going to start with Count Orlock's mustache. Yes, his mustache. Robert Eggers is known for historical and cultural accuracy, and portraying this Transylvanian count with a mustache was a stroke of genius. I mean, combined with the costume of furs and long robes and long hair, this is the closest count to Dracula's infamous, spiritual father, Vlad the Impaler, than any other portrayal. And Bill Skarsgård was the perfect choice for this role. Orlok in the flesh is intense and emotive, even through the undead FX makeup, and his voice seems to encompass the entire, I can't even say room, it seems to encompass the entire like inside of your brain, almost impounding Hutter by its very timbre as much as the desolate castle walls. Now, the meticulous attention to historic detail doesn't end with Nosferatu's threads or his stash. When in the village near Orlock's castle, Hutter sees a ritual to kill a vampire, and I was so extremely impressed by this just very non-campy kind of vampire killing ritual. It felt far more respectful to the genuine beliefs and traditions that vampire lore of today has its roots in. You know, as well, for a folklore nerd like me, the all encompassing fear that traditional beliefs hold about vampires and the undead and other, such kind of paranormal beings or spirits. This is not some one and done occurrence. It's not something that you just go out and kill a vampire and then you're done. It's this ongoing threat that you can only guard against, not eliminate completely. And that was encompassed so well in the scene of the village around Orlock's castle. Two, Eggers did such a phenomenal job of memorializing the original vision from 1922 in a way that still feels compelling. The shadow of Orlock's hand passing over the countryside and the tragic heroine, Ellen Hutter, is not only a direct recreation of that scene from the original film, but still, in my opinion, one of the absolutely best executed visuals for the concept of the mesmerism of the vampire that I have ever seen. And two, one of my favorite scenes from the movie is taken from the original. It's when Thomas brings Ellen a bouquet of flowers and she asks him, "Why have you killed them, the beautiful flowers?" As in the 1922 vision, it's kind of a subtle scene. It's definitely not one of the big scares, but it is this quote that I personally find to be the spookiest part of the movie. It's this dirge for the death of beauty, a sort of omen. And Nosferatu is truly a film that is all about death and beauty, sexuality and decay. Something that I was very excited to see in this film too, and honestly, it is not much of a surprise when looking at Eggers' other films, especially The Witch, is how he managed to dredge up a very kind of haunting motif of vampirism and its connections to the oppression of female sexuality. In this iteration of the film, it's the repression and shame of Ellen's own sexuality that Orlock effectively embodies. Now, there is a long held connection between the iconography of vampirism and female sexual identity. And in my opinion, Ellen's attraction to Orlock is finally a conscious and very successful attempt to show this concept in film. And again, honestly, throughout his movies, Eggers consistently does an amazing job too of expressing the belief structure of a particular time and culture in a way that it would be as it was. I'll have to do a review on The Witch eventually because that's a perfect example of how that movie didn't feel like a modern take on witchcraft. It felt like you were really watching how people from that era believed about witches, and that is the case here. It allows the audience to see the shortcomings of a time and place. Here in the bleeding of Ellen for her convulsions, or the conflation of her menstrual cycle with her night terrors. And it's interesting too, because in this case, the one character who seems to kind of stand apart from these superstitions is Willem Dafoe's character, the Van Helsing stand-in of Professor von Franz, which is interesting because he's a disgraced professor who has kind of fallen from grace for his belief and interest in such nonsense as demons, spirits, and the like. However, he is the only character in the film to treat Ellen as what she is, the person who understands Orlock better than anybody else ever could. Now back to Orlock. I feel like that's half of this video is back to Orlock, but seriously, this representation was so awesome. To me, it was the all-time best expression of the concept of a vampire, both as a beast, physically, and as kind of a spirit or essence immaterially. Orlock himself is definitely a rotted undead thing, a monster in the true non-glittery way that vampires traditionally are portrayed as almost something more zombie-like. However, his physicality is rife with sensuality. He drinks not from the necks of the victims, but rather from their hearts, a shocking display of sexual energy, first expressed upon the very shocked Thomas Hutter. Now, the presence that Skarsgård brings to the role is matched only by the other, again, immaterial expressions of Orlock. The black wolves that surround the castle, the driverless carriage that comes to collect Hutter, the rats that deliver the plague onto Visborg. Nosferatu is all of these things. And again, capturing that angle of the vampire, something physical, a physical threat as well as an immaterial threat, is so difficult to do, and it was done equally well in both of those parts. A quick note too on DeFo. Of course, I can't mention him without also mentioning that he is from Wisconsin, and apparently used to hitchhike all the way to Madison to watch art films. I can only wonder how many creepy hitchhiker stories that generated. But anyway, seriously though, he brings an objectivity to the events transpiring in Nosferatu, and stands literally surrounded by flames in probably my favorite scene in the movie, but that is a spoiler and will only be available in part 2 of this video, available to patrons. Also, before I go here, if anybody knows where to watch the other Nosferatu movie that DeFo is in, of course, Shadow of the Vampire, a black comedy, please drop me a line in the comments. I've been looking for it everywhere and somehow it keeps evading me. I just can't stake that thing down. Sorry, I had to do at least one vampire pun per video. So all in all, truly, this movie was horrifying, beautiful, tragic, and the only way I could see a remake of such a pinnacle of early cinema. And I have the utmost respect for Eggers, who always comes across as a very dedicated folklorist and historian in the movies that he decides to make, bringing the shadows of superstition to a modern audience while tackling the timeless struggles such shadows carry. So if you've seen this movie, feel free to offer your opinion in the comments, and if you haven't, I can only say that it is highly, highly recommended. I would love to know, actually, if you've seen this movie as well as the 1922 Nosferatu, please let me know which one you preferred. I think there was also a version from the 70s that I haven't seen, so hey, tell me which is your favorite version of Nosferatu. Tell me if you like it better than Dracula. I feel like that would cause some I don't know, fights among horror nerds, but I'm gonna be honest, I think that Nosferatu, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Nosferatu as a story is more compelling to me than Dracula, but I'm going to leave that at that. So if you like listening to people talk about movies and around spoilers or anything else weird, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and be sure to ring that bell to keep up with latest videos. for part 2 of this, where I discuss spoilers as well as my favorite scene, which is in itself a spoiler. Please subscribe to my Patreon. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.